Warning signs you are dealing with an evil person. Have you ever met someone who's just a little bit off? Maybe you have a negative impression of them, or have seen behavior in their part that makes you feel uneasy. If this sounds like someone you know you're not alone. As a matter of fact, there are red flags that might show you're dealing with someone you should stay away from at all costs. How can you determine whether or not a person is really nasty rather than simply having a terrible day? And what exactly are the characteristics or actions you should keep an eye out for? All these topics and more will be discussed in this video. Here we'll go through some of the most obvious warning signals that someone is potentially malicious so that you could shield yourself from their destructive energy. If you've ever had doubts about a person's character or integrity, or if you've been dealing with someone who appears set on doing you damage, this video is for you. Please press that red button to subscribe to our channel and comment, "I've subscribed," so we can thank you. Number 10. They lack empathy. A lack of empathy is a classic red flag when you're dealing with a malicious individual. Having compassion or the capacity to identify with and understand the emotions of another person is an essential trait for building and maintaining satisfying connections with other people. Nevertheless, what consequences follow from a lack of empathy? To provide just one example, they are less inclined to worry about the consequences of their behavior. Someone may be unable to comprehend the source of another's distress, or they may choose to disregard that person's sentiments as irrelevant. This may lead to a variety of negative actions, including, but not limited to bullying, emotional abuse, and even physical assault. If someone doesn't have empathy, however, how can you tell? Indifference to the pain of others is a prevalent trait among those who struggle with empathy. They couldn't care less about other people's suffering or feel empathy for those who are going through it. They might even take pleasure in bringing damage to others. Number 9. They enjoy seeing others suffer. Have you ever seen someone who appears to derive glee in the misery of others? This might be a clear clue that you're dealing with a person who likes watching others suffer. Such a person might lack empathy, making it difficult for them to connect to others and feel sympathy for them. Ask yourself, does this individual take delight in bringing pain or distress to others? Do they appear to get joy from the misfortune of others? These are vital considerations to consider when dealing with such folks. Another trait of those who like watching others suffer is that they may display bullying behavior. They may ridicule or bully others into making themselves feel superior. This might be a technique for them to increase their self-esteem by putting others down. It's crucial to notice this conduct and protect yourself from any danger. If you feel like someone is bullying or frightening you, get support from others around you and establish firm limits. No one deserves to be the victim of someone else's wicked delight of watching others suffer. Number 8. They lack integrity. One of the most admirable qualities in a person is honesty. Compared to people who could be dishonest or deceptive, this is what sets us different. Can you picture what would happen if everyone in the world lacked honesty and morals? The question then arises, what is integrity? Putting it simply, it's doing what's morally right while no one is looking. It's about demanding the best of oneself, no matter what the cost, and never giving up on making the moral option, even when it seems impossible. Be alert to warning signs that might suggest a lack of integrity, such as discrepancies between words and deeds, or a propensity to shift responsibility. Number 7. They manipulate others. Have you ever had the feeling that someone was attempting to force you to do something against your will? If this sounds familiar, you could be dealing with a manipulator. Some individuals use manipulation to gain power and control over others for their own ends. Although the symptoms may be subtle at first, it's essential to be on the lookout for them. Have you ever experienced shame or dread as a result of another person's words or actions? If this is the case, they may be resorting to emotional manipulation. Manipulators may attempt to use negative emotions such as fear to acquire power over their targets. A person may use phrases like, "I'll be terribly disappointed if you don't do this for me," or "You don't want to disappoint me, do you?" to put pressure on you. Number 6. They are always blaming others. Being with someone who is consistently placing the blame on others is tiring and annoying. A person who has difficulty taking responsibility for their actions may result in this kind of conduct as a protective strategy. Have you ever been the recipient of unjustified blame or made to feel responsible for another person's error? Besides being unjust, this kind of conduct might be an indicator of a troubled person for whom you're interacting, so be aware of the potential dangers it possesses. Constantly placing blame on others is a sure sign that the person in question does not take ownership of their actions. These people may have a sense of entitlement or superiority, or they may be unable to accept responsibility for their actions. In order to get to the bottom of things, it's vital to ask oneself some tough questions. Do they take responsibility for their actions? Do they accept responsibility for their actions, or are they quick to place blame on others? Do they have a hard time accepting others' points of view? Number 5, they are narcissistic. Is there anybody you know who always needs you to adore them? Narcissists are very insecure and need constant affirmation from others. They will frequently boast about their achievements and diminish the accomplishment of others in order to receive them. Is it ever hard to get someone to focus on you? Was there any emotional impact? It may be difficult and stressful to interact with a narcissist. This group feels that they are entitled to special treatment. They may neglect the sentiments of others while making choices or demand special treatment because their inflated sense of self-importance. Conflicts and relational strains may result when others feel unappreciated. It's vital to establish limits and safeguard yourself against the destructive actions of those who display narcissistic features. Number 4, they have a history of bad behavior. Have you ever encountered someone who appears to have a pattern of poor behavior? Maybe they cheated on you, manipulated you, or caused you or others harm. Recognizing the red flags might help you figure out what to do when faced with potentially dangerous circumstances. A consistent pattern of inappropriate conduct is a red flag. Some examples of such behaviors include dishonesty, infidelity, and theft, while more extreme examples include violence and abuse. You should be especially cautious about someone who has a history of this kind of conduct. Lack of responsibility for one's own conduct is a major red flag. Those with a track of adverse behavior are more likely to shift the blame, provide excuses, and attempt to rationalize their actions. Number 3, they are quick to get angry. One of the most unsettling symptoms of dealing with a really bad person is their pleasure in the pain of others. Sadism, a psychological characteristic defined by the delight of inflicting pain and suffering on others, is often linked to this form of conduct. It's crucial to remember that sadists aren't merely callous or heartless. They really take pleasure in the suffering of others. This may show itself in a variety of forms, from mild verbal harassment to severe assault. Do they appear to take pleasure in the agony of others? This is a crucial question to ask yourself if you believe someone is known to be a sadist. Is there a cold indifference to the pain of others? Do they have a tendency to make light of other people's suffering or brush it off as nothing? If you're someone who takes pleasure in bringing others distress, you need to take precautions. Taking this step might include physically separating from the offender or consulting a neutral third party for advice. Number 2, they are highly judgmental. Although it's necessary to try and put yourself in another person's shoes, it's also crucial to recognize the motivations behind the harsh judgments of those around you. Those who constantly cast others down to improve their own self-esteem usually have serious insecurities themselves. Their critical outlook is often based on the belief that their only views are the correct ones, which lead them to make hasty and unfair assessments. This might cause them to look down on or disregard anyone who disagrees with them or doesn't live up to their standards. So how do you handle folks that are really critical of you? Despite the need to set limits and being clear about your requirements, it's equally wise to make an effort to comprehend their perspective. Take the high road and show some empathy and genuine interest in what they have to say, rather than becoming defensive in response to their critiques. Inquire about their experience and make an effort to see things from their shoes, but make it clear that their dismissive attitude is not acceptable. Never forget that you have options to shield yourself from their poisonous words and energy. Number 1, they are extremely selfish. How often do you find yourself surrounded by people who put their own wants and desires above everyone else? Having to interact with incredibly selfish individuals might be disappointing and upsetting, but it's crucial to remember that their actions stem from their own self-interest. Those who are very self-centered frequently have a strong desire to be in charge and little compassion for others. They may put their own needs and desires first, no matter the consequences to themselves or others. When people are unable to receive what they need from others, they may resort to manipulating or taking advantage of them. The impulse to safeguard oneself from actual or imagined dangers may also contribute to the egocentric behavior. Because of this, they may become miserly and refuse to share their possessions, even if doing so would benefit others. Very selfish individuals may be difficult to deal with because of the deeply rooted attitudes and habits that underlie their conduct. Protecting yourself from their damaging actions, however, requires establishing boundaries and making your requirements known. Hence, it's clear that confronting bad people may be a tough slog. We must be alert to the red flags and take steps to shield ourselves from their destructive power. One of the most telling symptoms of a wicked person is their inability to feel compassion for others' pain. It's possible that they're egocentric, manipulative, and take pleasure in causing others pain. Setting boundaries and safeguarding oneself from such people is essential if we ever come into contact with them.